The great hall was silent. Thousands of alien beings sat in their floating chairs, watching the holographic display in the center of the room. The image showed a small blue planet with one moon spinning slowly in the darkness of space. Kang Dae-ho stood at the edge of the human delegation area. He wore his best diplomatic uniform, but he felt very small in this massive room. Around him sat creatures he had only dreamed about in science fiction movies. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others glowed with inner light. A few looked like walking crystals that sang when they moved. The human diplomat tried to stay calm. 3 weeks ago, humanity had successfully tested their first faster-than-light engine. It was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, within hours, alien ships had appeared in Earth's solar system. They came peacefully, but their message was urgent. "We need to talk." Now, Kang Dae-ho sat in the Galactic Confederation's main council chamber, somewhere near the center of the galaxy. The journey here had taken only minutes through alien technology that bent space itself. An ancient being floated forward. It looked like smoke given form, with eyes that sparkled like stars. When it spoke, the words appeared directly in everyone's mind. "Members of the Confederation," the being said, "we face our greatest crisis in 10,000 years. The humans have achieved faster-than-light travel." A wave of nervous sounds filled the chamber. Creatures chittered, hummed, and made noises that Kang Dae-ho had never heard before. He looked at his small team of humans. They all seemed as confused as he felt. "I don't understand," Kang Dae-ho said, standing up. "Why is our achievement a crisis? Surely this is good news. We can finally join the galactic community." The ancient being turned its star-like eyes toward him. "Young human, you do not yet understand what you are. For 50,000 years, we have followed one rule above all others. We call it Rule Prime." The holographic display changed. Now it showed the text of this rule in hundreds of alien languages. At the bottom, in perfect English, it read, "Under no circumstances shall any species make hostile contact with the humans of Sol 3. Kang Dae-ho blinked. "Hostile contact? But we're peaceful. We've never even met aliens before today." A creature that looked like a giant butterfly made of metal spoke up. "Human diplomat, your species has been watched for millennia. We have kept the galaxy away from you. Not to protect us from you, but to protect you from what you become when threatened." "What we become?" asked Dr. Yoon Hye-jin, the xenobiologist on Kang Dae-ho's team. "What do you mean?" The ancient being gestured, and the display changed. Again. Now it showed ancient recordings, grainy and old. They depicted human-like figures fighting impossible battles against overwhelming odds. In every recording, the humans won. "Your species is different," the being explained. "When other races face extinction, they surrender, flee, or die. When humans face extinction, they evolve. Not over generations, but in moments. Your minds and bodies change to meet any threat." Captain Park Jin-woo, the military representative, leaned forward. "You're saying we're some kind of super soldiers?" "Worse," whispered a reptilian creature from across the room. "You're survivors. The universe has never seen anything like human determination. When you decide something must be done, reality itself seems to bend to help you." The ancient being continued. "We have records of 17 species that attacked humans in your distant past. All 17 are now extinct, not because humans hunted them down, but because humans became something those species could not comprehend or defeat." Kang Dae-ho felt a chill run down his spine. "Are you saying we're monsters?" "No," the being replied. "You are guardians, but guardians so effective that your very existence terrifies those who might threaten what you protect. That is why Rule Prime exists. That is why we kept the galaxy away from you." Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. Red lights flashed, and the air filled with urgent alien voices. The ancient being's form became more solid, more focused. "What's happening?" Kang Dae-ho demanded. A new hologram appeared, showing the edge of known space. Dark shapes moved between the stars, consuming everything in their path. They looked like mechanical storms, turning planets into metal and energy into nothing. The Ravager Collective, the ancient being said, and for the first time, Kang Dae-ho heard fear in its voice. They are machines built to consume all matter and energy. They have no consciousness, no mercy, and no ability to negotiate. Dr. Yoon Hye-jin studied the display. How many worlds have they destroyed? 300 systems in the past year, replied the butterfly creature. They move faster than we can evacuate, faster than we can fight. And now, it paused, its metal wings trembling. Now they are moving toward human space. The room fell silent except for the continued alarms. Kang Dae-ho felt something cold settle in his stomach. You're saying these Ravagers are going to attack Earth? Yes, the ancient being confirmed. And that means Rule Prime has been violated. Not by choice, but by circumstance. The Ravagers do not know about your rule. They do not care about your rule. They only consume. Captain Park Jin-woo stood up, his military training taking over. How long do we have? 6 months? Perhaps 7, the being replied. They move through space like a plague. Nothing stops them. Nothing slows them down. Then we'll fight, Park Jin-woo said simply. The entire chamber erupted in frightened sounds. Creatures that had been calm moments before now seemed panicked. The ancient being raised what might have been a hand for silence. Human captain, you do not understand. These machines have destroyed civilizations that were millions of years old. They have weapons that can crack planets. They have numbers beyond counting. Park Jin-woo smiled. And somehow that smile made several aliens back away from him. Then they're about to learn why you have Rule Prime. The ancient being stared at him for a long moment. Captain, if humans fight the Ravagers, you will change. Your species will become something new, something that might save the galaxy, or something that might be worse than what you're fighting. Kang Dae-ho looked around the chamber at thousands of alien faces filled with fear. Not fear of the Ravagers, he realized, but fear of what humans might become in response to the Ravagers. We didn't ask for this, he said quietly. We just wanted to explore the stars. We know, the ancient being replied, but the universe has given you a choice. Let the Ravagers consume everything, including Earth, or become what you were always meant to be. The alarms continued to wail as humanity faced its first truly galactic decision. The human ship Aegis drifted through empty space, its hull gleaming silver against the stars. Captain Park Jin-woo stood on the bridge, watching the navigation display. 3 days had passed since the emergency meeting at the Galactic Confederation. Now he led humanity's first deep space exploration mission, searching for any sign of the approaching Ravager Collective. Captain, called out Lieutenant Kim Na-ri from the sensor station, I'm detecting something strange. There's a ship about 2 kilometers off our starboard side, but it's not showing up on our main sensors. Park Jin-woo frowned. How is that possible? I don't know, sir. It's like the ship is there and not there at the same time. In the engineering section, Lee Sora looked up from her work. She had been studying the alien technology that the Confederation had given them. The devices seemed simple enough, but every time she thought she understood how they worked, they did something impossible. Captain, Sora's voice came over the ship's communication system. I think I know why we can't see that ship properly. It's using some kind of dimensional, phase technology. The ship exists in our space, but it's also existing in parallel dimensions at the same time. Park Jin-woo shook his head. A week ago, the strangest thing in his life had been deciding what to have for breakfast. Now he was dealing with technology that existed in multiple dimensions. Can we help them? He asked. Maybe, Sora replied. But we'd have to get close. Really close. The captain made his decision. "Take us in, Nari, slowly." As the Aegis approached, the strange ship became more visible. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. The hull seemed to be made of crystallized light, but deep cracks ran through it. Parts of the ship flickered in and out of existence. "Captain," Kim Nari said, her voice tight with worry, "there's something else. I'm detecting massive energy signatures approaching from the direction we came. Big ones, and they're moving fast." Park Jin-woo felt his stomach drop. "How fast?" "They'll be here in 20 minutes. On the damaged alien ship, Veltar lay dying in what remained of his command chamber. He was an ethereal, one of the oldest species in the galaxy. His body was made of energy bound together by will and ancient technology. But now that energy was fading, leaking out through cracks in his form. He had been running from the Ravagers for 3 days. His ship was faster than anything the machines had, but they were relentless. They never stopped, never slowed down, never gave up. Now he sensed something new approaching, a ship with a strange energy signature. The crew felt different from any species he had encountered in his 10,000 years of life. Their minds were chaotic, unpredictable. But underneath that chaos, he sensed something that made him afraid and hopeful at the same time. A communication request reached his ship. Veltar accepted it, and suddenly he was looking at a human face. "This is Captain Park Jin-woo of the Earthship Aegis," the human said. "Your ship appears to be damaged. Do you need assistance?" Veltar studied the human captain. The being looked young by ethereal standards, but there was something in his eyes, a hardness that spoke of difficult decisions and the will to make them. "Human," Veltar whispered, his voice carrying across space through technology that bent reality. "You should not be here. The Ravagers come. They will be here soon." "We know," Park Jin-woo replied. "That's why we're here. We're looking for them." "Looking for them?" Veltar could not hide his shock. "Human, these machines have destroyed civilizations that existed before your son was born. Why would you seek them out?" "Because they're heading for our home," the captain said simply. "And we need to understand what we're fighting." Veltar felt something he had not experienced in millennia: wonder. This human spoke of fighting the Ravagers as if it were a normal thing, as if massive machine intelligences that consumed worlds were just another problem to solve. "Your ship is damaged," Park Jin-woo continued. "We're sending over an engineering team to help." "No," Veltar said urgently. "You must flee. The Ravagers will arrive soon. If they detect you, then we'll deal with that when it happens," the human interrupted. "Our engineer thinks she can help stabilize your phase variants. Just hold on." Lee So-ra transported over to the alien ship with her team. The moment she stepped aboard, she felt dizzy. The ship existed in several dimensions at once, and her human brain was trying to process information that should have been impossible to understand. But somehow, she did understand it. Looking at the damaged systems, she could see how they worked. Not just see it, but truly comprehend it in a way that surprised her. "Oh, Min-ho," she called to her assistant engineer. "Look at this power coupling. See how it's fractured across dimensional barriers?" Oh, Min-ho stared at the alien technology. Like So-ra, he found himself understanding things that should have taken years to learn. I think I can fix it, but I'll need to recalibrate the phase resonators." "How do you know about phase resonators?" So-ra asked. Min-ho paused, looking confused. I don't know. The knowledge is just there." Veltar watched the humans work on his ship with growing amazement. They moved with purpose and skill, understanding, technology that had taken his people thousands of years to develop. But more than that, they were improving it. "Human engineer," he called to So-ra. "What you are doing should not be possible. You have never seen this technology before." So-ra looked up from her work. "You're right. I don't understand how I know this stuff. It's like the information is appearing in my head when I need it. That is not normal for your species. Definitely not normal, Sora replied, then paused. At least I don't think it is, but then again, we've never been in a situation like this before. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout both ships. The Ravagers had arrived. Through the viewports, they could see the machines emerging from faster-than-light travel. They were huge, dark shapes that seemed to absorb light itself. As they moved, space around them twisted and warped. How many? Park Jin-woo asked over the communication link. Kim Na-ri's voice was steady despite the fear in her words. 12 ships, Captain. Each one is bigger than our largest space station. Veltar felt despair wash over him. Human Captain, you must flee now. Take your people and run. Maybe you can escape. Negative, Park Jin-woo replied. Sora, how much longer do you need? 2 minutes to stabilize the phase variance, she called back. But Captain, this alien's right. We can't fight those things. We're not going to fight them, the captain said, and Veltar heard something in his voice that made the ancient ethereal's energy form shiver. We're going to study them. One of the Ravager ships turned toward them, its weapons beginning to charge. Energy readings that could destroy a moon started building in its forward sections. Human, Veltar whispered. Your species. We have watched you for millennia. We kept the galaxy away from you for a reason. You are different. When threatened, humans become something else entirely. Lee Sora finished her repairs just as the Ravager ship fired. But instead of running, she did something that surprised everyone, including herself. She rerouted the alien ship's dimensional phase technology to create a reflection field around both vessels. The Ravager's weapon struck the field and bounced back, hitting the machine ship instead. For the first time in recorded history, a Ravager weapon had been turned against its creator. Impossible, Veltar breathed. Sora stared at her hands, wondering how she had known to do that. I think, she said slowly, we're about to find out what the Confederation was so worried about. The other Ravager ships turned toward them, their weapons charging. And in that moment, every human on both ships felt something change deep inside their minds. Deep in the archives of the Galactic Confederation, Kang Dae-ho sat before a massive holographic display. The alien librarian, a creature that looked like a floating jellyfish made of silver light, had given him access to the restricted historical files. What he was reading made his hands shake. These records, he said to the librarian, are they real? The silver being pulsed with what might have been sadness. Every word, human diplomat. These are the reasons why Rule Prime exists. The first file opened, showing events from 10,000 years ago. Kang Dae-ho watched as the hologram displayed a massive alien fleet surrounding a small human colony ship. The attackers called themselves the Void Hunters, and they were slavers, who captured entire species. The recording showed them taking humans from the colony ship, loading them into cages like animals. Men, women, children, all treated as property to be sold. The Void Hunters were confident, laughing as they worked. They had done this to hundreds of species before, but one human escaped. The records called him Kim Ha-jun, a simple maintenance worker on the colony ship. The Void Hunters thought he was dead, but he had hidden in a damaged section of their ship. What happened next should have been impossible. The holographic display showed Kim Ha-jun moving through the Void Hunter ship. He had no weapons, no training, and no knowledge of alien technology. But somehow, he learned. He watched the aliens work their controls for minutes, then operated them like an expert. Within a week, he had freed all the human prisoners. Within a month, he had captured 3 Void Hunter ships. Within 6 months, he was leading a fleet of freed slaves from dozens of species, and the Void Hunter's empire was crumbling. One human did all this? Kang Dae-ho asked in disbelief. Watch what happens next. the librarian replied. The display showed the final battle. Kim Ha-jun's fleet was outnumbered 1,000 to 1. The Void Hunters brought their entire military force to crush this upstart human. They had weapons that could destroy stars and armor that could survive black holes. Kim Ha-jun attacked anyway. The battle was not even close. The human fleet moved in ways that defied physics. They anticipated every Void Hunter strategy before. It was even planned. When their weapons weren't powerful enough, the humans modified them during combat, creating new technologies in minutes that should have taken years to develop. By the end of the day, the Void Hunter civilization was extinct, not defeated, completely erased from existence. Their worlds were empty, their ships were scrap, and their technology had been absorbed by the human fleet. The scariest part, the librarian said, is what the humans did afterward. They could have ruled the galaxy with that kind of power. Instead, Kim Ha-jun freed all the slave species, gave them the captured technology, and then disappeared into deep space. He said humans had no business ruling over others. Kang De-ho stared at the display. What happened to him? No one knows. But after that, every major power in the galaxy agreed on Rule Prime. Never again would anyone attack humans. The second file opened, showing events from 5,000 years ago. This time, the threat came from the Psychic Dominion, a species that controlled other races through mental power. The Dominion thought humans would be easy to control, the librarian explained. Human minds seemed simple compared to other species. No natural psychic abilities, no mental defenses. They were wrong. The recording showed Psychic Dominion forces attempting to take control of a human research station. At first, it worked. The humans stood still, their minds controlled by alien thoughts. The Dominion leaders were pleased. Then something went wrong. The controlled humans began to fight back, not with their bodies but with their minds. Somehow, they were pushing back against the psychic control, not individually, but as a group. What you're seeing, the librarian said, is the first recorded instance of collective human consciousness. When threatened with mental domination, the entire human species linked their minds together. The psychic pushback from billions of human minds hit the Dominion like a tidal wave. In minutes, every member of the Psychic Dominion lost their mental powers permanently. They became ordinary beings, no different from any other species. They begged the humans for forgiveness, the librarian continued. The humans gave it to them, then helped them rebuild their civilization without psychic powers. The former Dominion still exists today as a peaceful trading partner with the Confederation. The third file was the most disturbing. 2,000 years ago, a species called the Star Devourers had tested human resolve by consuming Earth's moon. They thought it was a minor provocation, the librarian said, just enough to get humanity's attention and show their power. They planned to negotiate from a position of strength. The human response was swift and terrible. Within hours of the moon's destruction, every human spacecraft in existence began converging on Star Devourer territory. Ships that had been exploring distant galaxies, colony vessels that had been searching for new homes, even damaged hulks that barely functioned, all turned toward the enemy. But that wasn't the scary part. The scary part was what happened to the humans themselves. The recordings showed human crews working with impossible efficiency. Engineers who had never seen Star Devourer technology were somehow building counters to it. Pilots were flying maneuvers that should have been physically impossible. Scientists were creating new types of weapons that violated known laws of physics. How? Kang De-ho whispered. We think, the librarian said carefully, that when humans are sufficiently threatened, they stop being limited by normal reality. They become something else. Something that can do whatever is necessary to protect what they love. The war lasted 3 days. The Star Devourers, who had consumed galaxies, were completely annihilated. But the truly terrifying part came afterward. The recordings showed the surviving Star Devourers, the ones who had not participated in the moon's destruction, coming to the humans to surrender. But instead of accepting surrender, the humans did something unprecedented. They gave the Star Devourers a choice: voluntary extinction, or face what humanity might become if the war continued. The Star Devourers chose extinction. They killed themselves. Rather than fight humans? Kang Dae-ho asked. They said that watching humans in combat was like seeing reality itself become angry, the librarian replied. The Star Devourers had faced cosmic horrors that existed since the universe began, but they had never seen anything like humans protecting something they cared about. Kang Dae-ho leaned back in his chair, overwhelmed. So that's why Rule Prime exists. Everyone's terrified of us. Not terrified, the librarian corrected. Respectful. There's a difference. Most species become dangerous when they're angry. Humans become impossible when they're protecting something. The galaxy learned to leave you alone not because you're evil, but because you're so effective at being good that it becomes frightening. A new message appeared on the display. It was from Captain Park Jin-woo, transmitted from deep space. Kang Dae-ho, the captain's voice said. We've encountered the Ravagers. They're unlike anything we've ever seen, but something strange is happening to our crew. We're changing, learning things we shouldn't know. Please tell the Confederation that if we don't check in within 24 hours, they should assume Rule Prime has been fully activated. The message ended. Kang Dae-ho looked at the silver librarian. What does fully activated mean? The librarian's light dimmed. It means, human diplomat, that your species is about to become what it was always meant to be, and the galaxy will either be saved or it will learn that some cures are worse than the disease. In the background, alarms began to sound throughout the Confederation archives. On screens around them, reports began coming in from across human space. Ships were moving. Humans everywhere were experiencing strange dreams, sudden knowledge, and an overwhelming urge to protect their home. It's starting, the librarian whispered. Kang Dae-ho stood up, feeling something change inside his own mind. Knowledge was appearing there, tactical information he had never learned, understanding of alien technology he had never seen. Then we'd better hope, he said, his voice carrying a new authority, that the universe is ready for us. The first attack came at dawn on the colony world of New Seoul. Admiral Choi Eun-jung watched from the bridge of her flagship as massive dark shapes emerged from hyperspace above the planet. The Ravager Collective had arrived in human space. How? Many ships? She asked her tactical officer. 237 confirmed, Lieutenant Bae Sung-min replied, his voice steady despite the impossible odds. Each one is the size of a city. On the planet below, Kim Tae-sung was conducting a routine inspection of the mining facilities when the sky turned black. The colony administrator looked up to see mechanical monstrosities blotting out the sun. Within minutes, the Ravager machines began their work, converting the outer settlements into raw materials. All civilians to the underground shelters, Kim Tae-sung ordered over the emergency broadcast system. This is not a drill. He watched through the facility's cameras as the Ravager machines moved across the landscape like a plague of metal locusts. Everything they touched, buildings, vehicles, even the ground itself, was broken down into component atoms and absorbed into their ships. But something was wrong with their calculations. Dr. Yoon Hye-jin, the colony's chief scientist, noticed it first. The Ravagers are slowing down, she reported to Kim Tae-sung. They should have processed the entire northern continent by now, but they're moving at half speed. Why? Kim Tae-sung asked. I don't know. It's like they're having trouble analyzing our technology. Every time they try to convert one of our devices, they pause, as if they can't understand how it works. Above the planet, Admiral Choi Eun-jung prepared her defense fleet, 50 human ships against over 200 Ravager dreadnoughts. By every military calculation, it was suicide. But Admiral Choi had been having strange dreams for the past week. Dreams filled with tactical knowledge she had never learned, weapon designs that shouldn't exist, and battle strategies that defied logic. "All ships," she announced over the fleet communication system, "prepare for Protocol Zero." Her officers looked at her in confusion. "Admiral," her first officer said carefully, "there is no Protocol Zero in our tactical database." "There is now," Admiral Choi replied. She felt knowledge flowing into her mind, knowledge that seemed to come from somewhere else entirely. "Authorization code, Omega. All ships, activate enhanced combat protocols." Across the human fleet, something extraordinary happened. Every crew member suddenly found their minds filled with new information. Engineers understood technologies that hadn't been invented yet. Pilots knew maneuvers that shouldn't be physically possible. Weapons officers could operate systems that existed only in theory. Lee So-ra, working frantically in the engine room of the Aegis, felt the change most dramatically. "Captain Park," she called over the intercom, "I think I know how to modify our weapons to hurt these things." "How?" Captain Park Jin-woo asked. "I'm not sure," So-ra admitted. "The knowledge just appeared in my head. But I think if we reverse the polarity of our plasma cannons and route them through the dimensional phase generators we took from that ethereal ship—" "Do it," Park ordered. So-ra's hands moved across the control panels with impossible speed and precision. She was modifying weapon systems in real time, creating new technologies as she worked. Her assistant, Oh Min-ho, was doing the same thing, and somehow they both understood exactly what the other was doing without speaking. The first engagement was a disaster for conventional tactics. The Ravager ships fired weapons that could crack planets. Their beams tore through space itself, creating rifts in reality. But the human ships didn't behave conventionally. Pilot Bae Sung-min, flying a fighter that should have been destroyed instantly, somehow managed to slip between the Ravager energy beams, not by going around them, but by flying through spaces that didn't exist until he created them. "How did you do that?" his wingman asked over the radio. "I don't know," Bae replied honestly. "I just knew where to go." Admiral Choi watched the battle unfold with growing amazement. Her ships were moving in formation patterns that shouldn't work, but somehow did. They were coordinating attacks with split-second timing that required communication faster than light. "Admiral," her tactical officer reported, "the enemy is adapting their strategies. They're trying to predict our movements." "Then we'll be unpredictable," Admiral Choi replied. She felt something cold and determined settle in her mind. "All ships, ignore tactical doctrine. Trust your instincts." What happened next had never been seen before in galactic warfare. The human fleet began fighting with pure intuition. Ships that should have been destroyed survived impossible attacks. Weapons that shouldn't have worked penetrated Ravager defenses. Lee So-ra's modified weapons proved devastatingly effective. The reversed plasma cannons created energy bursts that seemed to confuse the Ravager ship's systems. When struck by these weapons, the machines would stop moving for several seconds, as if they couldn't understand what had hit them. "It's working," she called to Captain Park. "The Ravagers can't process our modifications. Their analysis systems are failing." On the planet below, Kim Tae-sung organized the civilian resistance. But calling it resistance was wrong. It was something else entirely. The colonists were fighting with equipment that shouldn't exist, using tactics that defied military logic. Group of miners had somehow converted their industrial equipment into weapons that fired concentrated gravity pulses. The farm workers had turned their atmospheric processors into shields that bent space around the shelters. Even the children were helping, their young minds adapting to alien technology with frightening ease. "How are they doing this?" Dr. Yoon Hyejin asked, watching a 10-year-old girl successfully reprogram a Ravager probe to attack its own fleet. "I think," Kim Tae-sung said slowly, We're seeing what the Confederation was afraid of. When humans are threatened enough, we stop being limited by what's possible. The turning point came when pilot Bae Sung-min made a decision that should have been suicide. His fighter was damaged, his weapons were gone, and a Ravager dreadnought was bearing down on him. So he rammed his ship into the alien vessel. But instead of simply exploding, his fighter somehow created a cascade failure in the Ravager's systems. The massive ship, which had been immune to everything else the humans had thrown at it, simply shut down. How? Admiral Choi demanded. Dr. Yoon Hye-jin, monitoring the battle from the planet, provided the answer. The impact point. Pilot Bae somehow hit the one spot on that ship that would cause total system failure. But Admiral, that spot didn't exist until the moment of impact. What do you mean? I mean, he created a weakness in the enemy ship through pure force of will. The Ravager machines are built to analyze and counter every possible threat. But they can't analyze something that doesn't follow logical rules. Across the battlefield, other human ships began adopting similar tactics. They stopped trying to fight the Ravagers with conventional weapons and started fighting them with impossibility itself. Ships flew through enemy formations using paths that existed only because the pilots believed they were there. Weapons created effects that violated physics simply because the gunners needed them to work. Engineers repaired damage by refusing to accept that their systems were broken. Within hours, the Ravager fleet was in full retreat. Machines that had never known defeat were fleeing from an enemy they couldn't understand or predict. But Admiral Choi felt no satisfaction in the victory. She could feel something changing inside every human in the fleet. They were becoming something new, something that might be necessary to fight the Ravagers, but something that might also be dangerous to everyone else. Admiral, her communications officer called out, we're receiving a message from deep space. It's from the Ravagers themselves. Put it through. The voice that came through the speakers was mechanical, emotionless, but somehow conveyed urgency. Human vessels. This collective requests immediate cessation of hostilities. Admiral Choi was so surprised she almost forgot to respond. You're surrendering? Negative. This collective seeks understanding. Your tactics violate all known parameters. Your capabilities exceed recorded limitations. This collective requires data to continue primary mission. What primary mission? Evacuation of galactic population from approaching threat. Warning! Greater danger follows behind this collective. Humans must prepare for true enemy. The communication ended, leaving Admiral Choi staring at her crew in shock. The Ravagers hadn't been invading. They had been running. And if something could make the Ravagers run, what did that mean for humanity? Dr. Yoon Hye-jin stood in her laboratory on New Seoul, staring at the genetic analysis results that had just appeared on her screen. Her hands were shaking as she read the data for the third time, hoping she had made a mistake. She had not. This can't be right, she whispered to herself. But the evidence was undeniable. The blood samples she had taken from the human defenders after the Ravager attack showed something impossible. Their DNA was changing in real time, adapting to threats that hadn't even appeared yet. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what she had found in the old samples, the ones taken from humans before they had ever encountered aliens. The potential for these changes had always been there, written into their genetic code like a dormant program waiting for activation. Kim Tae-sung entered the lab, still wearing his emergency coordinator uniform. Doctor, we need your report for the Confederation. They're asking how our people were able to fight off the Ravagers so effectively. Yoon Hye-jin turned to face him, her expression haunted. Kim, we need to talk. What I've found, it changes everything we thought we knew about humanity. Meanwhile, in deep space, Captain Park Jin-woo led a strike force toward the edge of known space. The Ravagers had given them coordinates before retreating, the location where the true enemy would appear. But what they found there made no sense. Captain, Lee Sora called from the engineering station. I'm detecting massive energy signatures ahead, but they're not showing up on our sensors properly. What do you mean? Park asked. They're there and not there at the same time, like they exist in the spaces between normal reality. The alien archives had taught them to fear the entropy lords, but seeing them was worse than any description. They appeared as holes in space itself, areas where matter and energy simply ceased to exist. When they moved, stars went out. When they fed, entire solar systems vanished. My God, whispered Navigation Officer Kim Nari. How do you fight something like that? Very carefully, Park replied, but inside he felt the same cold determination that had been growing in all humans since the crisis began. So, Ra, can you analyze their energy patterns? Already working on it, Captain, but this is unlike anything we've encountered. These beings don't just destroy matter. They're unmaking the fundamental forces that hold reality together. Back on the Galactic Confederation's main station, Kang Dae-ho received an urgent message from Dr. Yoon Hee-jin. When he read her findings, he immediately called an emergency session with the Alien Council. Members of the Confederation, he announced to the assembled aliens, we have discovered something about human biology that you need to know. The ancient ethereal being floated forward. Speak, human diplomat. We're not from Earth, Kang Dae-ho said simply. We never were. The chamber erupted in shocked sounds from hundreds of alien species. The ethereal's energy form flickered with surprise. Explain, it demanded. Kang Dae-ho activated the holographic display, showing Dr. Yoon Hee-jin's genetic analysis. Our DNA contains artificial markers, genetic engineering so advanced that we didn't recognize it until now. Humans were created by another species, one that no longer exists. The architects, the ethereal whispered. But that's impossible. The architects died out 50,000 years ago. Apparently not before they finished their final project, Kang Dae-ho replied. Us. The display changed, showing theoretical models that Dr. Yoon Hee-jin had constructed. The architects faced an existential crisis. They were brilliant scientists, but they knew they couldn't survive forever. So they created a species designed to be the ultimate threat response. A crystalline being in the audience spoke up. You're saying humans are biological weapons? Worse, Kang Dae-ho admitted. We're adaptive biological weapons. The architects engineered us to automatically develop whatever capabilities are needed to defeat any threat we encounter. Our minds, our bodies, even our technology, everything, changes to meet the challenge. The ethereal being studied the data with growing horror. The mathematics of this design, it's brilliant and terrifying. Humans don't just adapt to threats, you adapt beyond them. You become more capable than whatever you're fighting. That's why Rule Prime exists, Kang Dae-ho continued. Every species that attacked humans triggered our adaptive protocols. They made us become something that could defeat them completely. In the depths of space, Captain Park Jin-woo's strike force encountered something that changed everything. The entropy lords weren't attacking randomly. They were fleeing from something else. Captain, Lee Sora reported, her voice filled with awe and terror. I'm detecting residual energy signatures in this area. Something was here before the entropy lords, something that scared them away. What could scare beings that unmake reality? Park asked. The answer came in the form of ancient wreckage. The remains of ships so advanced that even looking at them hurt the human mind. But scattered among the debris were records, data files that contained the truth about the architects. Captain, Kim Nari said, studying the alien records. The architects didn't die out naturally. They were killed by their own creation. What? Creation. The first prototype humans. The architects created a test batch of adaptive beings to see if their design would work. It worked too well. The prototype humans became so powerful that they posed a threat to reality itself. Park felt something cold settle in his stomach. What happened to the prototypes? The architects were forced to destroy them, but not before. The prototypes had already begun changing the fundamental laws of physics in local space. The destruction of the prototype humans created the entropy lords. "You're saying," Park said slowly, "that the entropy lords are what's left of the first attempt to create humans?" "Yes. And they've been consuming reality ever since, trying to undo what the architects did to them." Back on the Confederation station, the implications were becoming clear. The ancient, ethereal being addressed Kang De-ho with something approaching panic in its voice. "Human diplomat, your species represents a paradox. You were created to be the ultimate defense against threats to existence itself. But by becoming that defense, you might become the greatest threat." "We know," Kang De-ho replied. "Dr. Yoon Hyejin's analysis shows that human adaptation has no upper limit. Given sufficient threat, we could theoretically develop capabilities that would make us dangerous to reality itself. Like the prototypes," the ethereal said. "Like the prototypes." A new alarm began sounding throughout the station. Reports were coming in from across human space. Every human settlement was experiencing the same phenomenon. People were developing new abilities, understanding technologies that hadn't been invented yet, and displaying levels of coordination that suggested some kind of collective consciousness was emerging. "It's starting," the Silver Librarian reported. "The full activation of human adaptive protocols. Your species is becoming what the architects designed you to be." Admiral Choi Yoon-jung, coordinating the defense of human space from her flagship, felt the change happening to her crew. They were working with impossible efficiency, understanding alien technology intuitively, and solving problems that should have been unsolvable. But more troubling was what she felt happening to herself. Knowledge was flowing into her mind. Not just tactical information, but fundamental understanding of how reality worked. She could see ways to modify their weapons that would give them godlike power, ways to change space itself to serve human needs. "Admiral," her tactical officer reported, "we're receiving communication from Captain Park's strike force. They're requesting immediate backup. The entropy lords are moving toward human space, and there are a lot of them." Admiral Choi looked at her fleet of modified human ships, at her crew of rapidly evolving humans, and made a decision that would determine the fate of the galaxy. "All ships, prepare for Protocol Omega," she announced. "We're going to show the universe why the architects created us." But even as she gave the order, Admiral Choi wondered if they were about to save the galaxy or destroy it. The line between ultimate defender and ultimate threat was becoming very thin, and humanity was about to cross it. The final battle began at the edge of known space, where reality itself was thin and broken. Admiral Choi Eun-jung's fleet faced an enemy that should not have been possible to fight: the Entropy Lords, beings of pure destructive force that existed to end all organized matter in the universe. "Admiral," her tactical officer reported, "I count 47 Entropy Lords approaching our position. Each one is approximately the size of a moon." "How long until they reach human space?" Admiral Choi asked. "At their current speed, 6 hours. But Admiral, they're not just moving through space. They're unmaking it as they go. Every area they pass through stops existing." Admiral Choi felt the change completing itself inside her mind. The human adaptive protocols were fully active now, and she understood things that no being should understand. She could see the mathematical structure of reality itself, and more importantly, she could see how to change it. "All ships," she announced, "we're not just defending human space today. We're defending the concept of existence itself." Captain Park Jin-woo's voice came over the communications system from his position near the advancing entropy lords. "Admiral, I've been studying these things. They're not really alive in any sense we understand. They're more like cosmic antibodies, trying to return the universe to a state of perfect entropy." "Which means?" Admiral Choi asked. "Which means they see all organized matter, all life, all consciousness as a disease to be cured. And they're very good at their job. Lee Sora, working frantically in the engineering section of the Aegis, was making modifications to their weapons that violated every known law of physics. But somehow they worked anyway. "Captain Park," she called out, "I think I've figured out how to hurt these things, but it requires us to create what I can only describe as impossible space. Areas where physics work according to our will rather than universal law." "Can you do it?" Park asked. "I already am," Sora replied, and activated her creation. Around the human fleet, space itself began to change. Stars that had been dying suddenly flared back to life. Empty void filled with matter that appeared from nowhere. The entropy lords, which had been advancing unstoppably, suddenly found themselves slowing down. "What's happening?" Admiral Choi demanded. Dr. Yoon-hee Jin, monitoring the battle from New Seoul, provided the answer. "The humans in the fleet are imposing their will on reality itself. They're creating local areas where the universe works according to human logic, instead of physics." Is that possible? It shouldn't be. But humanity has moved beyond what should be possible. We're becoming something that exists outside normal universal law. The entropy lords responded to this change with something that might have been confusion. For the first time in cosmic history, their ability to unmake organized matter was being resisted. One of the lords sent out a communication, not in words, but in pure concept. "Error, reality, matrix unstable, unknown variables detected." Admiral Choi smiled grimly. "Unknown variables, that's us." Captain Park Jin-woo led the first direct assault on an entropy lord. His ship, the Aegis, should have been destroyed the moment it came within a light year of the cosmic destroyer. Instead, Lee Sora's impossible modifications allowed it to exist in the spaces between normal physics. "Captain," Oh Min-ho called from his engineering station, "the ship is adapting faster than I can monitor. We're incorporating technologies that haven't been invented yet. Just keep us flying," Park replied, then opened a channel to his boarding team. "Kim Nari, are you ready for this?" Lieutenant Kim Nari, suited up for what should have been a suicide mission, checked her equipment one last time. "Ready as anyone. Can be for boarding a being of pure entropy, sir." What happened next had never been attempted before in the history of the universe. Human soldiers, equipped with weapons that existed partially outside reality, boarded an entropy lord. The inside of the cosmic entity was a nightmare of unmaking force. Everything that existed there was in the process of being destroyed, broken, down into fundamental nothingness. But the humans moved through this environment as if it were merely uncomfortable rather than instantly lethal. "How are we surviving this?" one of Kim Nari's soldiers asked. "We're refusing to be unmade," Nari replied, and somehow that was answer enough. They fought their way to what might have been the Entropy Lord's control center, where they found something unexpected, the remnants of consciousness from the prototype. Humans, the ones the architects had been forced to destroy 50,000 years ago. "Help us," the broken consciousness whispered across dimensions. "We cannot stop what we became." Kim Nari understood. The Entropy Lords weren't evil. They were the tortured remains of the architect's first attempt at creating humanity. They had become so powerful that they threatened reality itself, and their destruction had twisted them into beings that could only unmake what they had once protected. "We can stop this," she told the broken consciousness. "But you have to trust us." Meanwhile, Admiral Choi's main fleet engaged the other Entropy Lords in a battle that redefined what warfare could be. Human ships created weapons that fired concentrated possibility, beams that made things more real rather than destroying them. When these weapons struck the Entropy Lords, areas of their unmaking force were converted back into normal space. Lee So-ra's greatest achievement was a device she called a reality anchor, a machine that forced local space to obey human understanding of how things should work. When deployed near an entropy lord, the cosmic destroyer found itself unable to unmake matter because the humans in the area simply refused to accept that such unmaking was possible. "It's working," Admiral Choi announced. "The entropy lords are being contained." But the true breakthrough came when the human boarding teams reached the core consciousness of each entropy lord. Instead of destroying these broken beings, the humans did something unprecedented. They tried to heal them. Using abilities they didn't fully understand, guided by compassion rather than logic, the human soldiers began to restore the shattered minds of the prototype humans. They couldn't undo 50,000 years of cosmic horror, but they could offer these tortured beings something they had never known: peace. One by one, the entropy lords stopped their advance. As their original human consciousness was partially restored, they began to remember what they had been created to protect rather than destroy. The final entropy lord, the largest and most powerful, sent out a communication that reached every mind in the galaxy. "We remember. Now, we were protectors. We became destroyers. You show us the path back." Admiral Choi felt tears running down her face as she watched beings of cosmic destruction transform back into guardians. What happens now? The answer came from Kang Dae-ho, speaking from the Galactic Confederation station. "Now we rebuild. The entropy lords will help repair the damage they caused, and humanity becomes what the architects always intended." "Which is what?" Admiral Choi asked. "The universe's immune system," Kang Dae-ho replied. "Beings capable of defending existence itself against any threat, no matter how impossible." Dr. Yoon Hye-jin's final report would become the foundation of a new universal understanding. Humanity represents the solution to an ancient problem. How do you create defenders capable of protecting against threats that don't exist yet? The answer is to create beings whose capabilities have no upper limit, whose compassion matches their power, and who see protection as their highest calling. The Galactic Confederation dissolved itself and reformed as something new, a cooperative alliance with humanity as its guardians, not rulers, but protectors who would ensure that no force, cosmic or otherwise, could threaten the continued existence of life and consciousness in the universe. Lee So-ra, now recognized as the greatest engineer in galactic history, established new principles of technology based on human will and determination rather than mere physics. Her final innovation was a communication network that allowed every species in the galaxy to contribute to their own defense while being protected by human adaptive capabilities. Captain Park Jin-woo became the first director of Universal Protection, leading fleets of human and alien ships that patrolled the galaxy not for conquest, but for defense. His motto became the new universal law: "We don't seek fights, but we finish them." And in the deepest archives of what had once been the Confederation, a new rule was recorded. Rule Prime Revision. The humans of Sol 3 are hereby designated as the universe's immune system. They exist to protect all life against threats to existence itself. Do not interfere with their development. Do not threaten their people. Do not test their limits. They have none. The universe had learned that its greatest threat, beings capable of rewriting reality through pure determination, were also its greatest protection. Humanity had become what the architects had envisioned, the final answer to the question of how to defend against the impossible. And they did it not through destruction, but through the one thing that made them truly human, the absolute refusal to let anything they cared about be destroyed.